My grandmother, Trudy, she brought me to Christ when I was about 5 or 6. Like, I always loved going to church. She'd take me to church every Sunday, and I'd go there every Wednesday. But even when people were sick or times are rough, I'd still go and I'd pray.
I didn't really know Christ when I was a child. I mean, in my home, we had a lot of Christian values, but we didn't really go to church, so I didn't really see who God really was. And I didn't really make a lot of friends when I was younger, and I was diagnosed with ADHD. And later in life, I did start to make friends, and they weren't the right kind of friends. They were always doing usually something illegal, and I was doing it with them. After 17 years, my parents sent me to Teen Challenge, and gradually I began to accept God and who He was, and it was really kind of slow, but eventually, I just kept trusting Him more and more. I have a lot more confidence in who I am, and I'm not really down on myself and depressed like I was. I actually think about my future and plan, what I want to do and have an idea of where I'm going to go. And I treat people a lot better than I used to.
Well, my whole life growing up, I never had church as a part of my life. My parents had very strong values that they taught and lived a great life. I felt like I lived it right and did things right. And probably I didn't know anybody that ever attended church or went to church on a regular basis. And then when I moved my young family to Zionsville area back in the late 80s, we noticed everybody was going to church, and that didn't happen in our old neighborhood. So we talked about it, and we decided we'd start attending church, and we did, and it was just that. We attended a church. It was brick and mortar, kind of an empty, meaningless thing. I couldn't wait to get home and do yard work after that. But after meeting Sally in the early 2000s, she was really the first person that I ever had any discussions about religion, and so when we started dating, then later on, a few years down the road, then we wanted to find a church we could attend together, and we attended several churches over several weeks, and we ended up here at Eagle, and they decided to start the journey through the Old Testament. And when they started that was really my first introduction to the Bible, and it really grabbed a hold of me. It really began really sinking into my head what was going on and what it was all about. Sally and I would try to go after church and have brunch or lunch, and we were sitting there one day, and Sally said to me, we were looking at the menu, and I was humming. I didn't realize what I was humming or anything, and she stopped me and she said, "A year ago, would you have ever thought you'd be sitting in a restaurant after church service humming the tune Hosanna?" And I just started laughing. I said, "Not in a million years." And then having Jeff Saturday come and talking about sitting on that fence, and it does no good to sit on that fence. You need to get off the fence and live the life. And when Carrie did the sermon on baptism, then that day when I left here, I knew that August 15th was my day. I think it was within a day or two of Carrie's sermon, I was sitting there working on mowers, getting kind of frustrated with one of them, and all of a sudden I just sat back and I thought about what had happened and what's going on over the last couple of years, and that's when I asked to be saved. And so everything has been changed since then. My parents taught me some great values, and I lived by those, and I always thought I lived pretty right, but it's a big challenge now, and things are completely different.
It was before my freshman year, and I was at a camp, and I decided to accept Jesus Christ as my Savior. I was about 14. I was 14. But I've always known who Jesus was, but I didn't realize what I needed to do. And I couldn't love Him before I loved who He made me, and I struggled with that my whole life. But then at Ignite, I just decided to just surrender it all and just, go for it and not be afraid. I mean, sometimes I'm scared, but, I know that there's people on my side.
Growing up, I always knew of Jesus and that He loved me, but I never grew up in a church or anything like that. I struggled a lot with self-confidence and just liking of myself. And When I was 9, I picked up my first drink of alcohol and was familiar with the taste ever since. When I was 11 or 12, I picked up my first cigarette, and then I found myself starting to use gateway drugs such as marijuana. And that just led into narcotics, painkillers, and then soon painkillers weren't doing the trick, so I moved to heavier drugs like cocaine and heroin. And on top of all that, I was using alcohol too. My world came crashing down on May 6th of '09 when my dad committed suicide. And that's when I definitely hit my rock bottom, and I didn't know what to do. And I found myself using more and drinking more anytime I could get my hands on it. I couldn't function without it. I mean, I was so dependent on them. Like, I couldn't live without them. And I found myself like, they made me sane, but when I didn't have them, I was insane. I was on probation, and they thought that might help, and I just found myself rebelling more and getting into all sorts of trouble still, and even worse off than I was before. Then my mom found Teen Challenge, where I have learned and had my first relationship with the Lord, and now I'm growing and strengthening my relationship with Him.
I was just sitting around my house, and I think we were getting ready to go somewhere, and all of a sudden it just hit me like, I want God in my life because He's there for me no matter what. And I just wanted Him in my life, and all of a sudden, and I felt that was good. So I think that's when it really hit me that I wanted Him in my life. When I wasn't really focused on God, I kind of made bad choices and did things that I really shouldn't have done. But then when He came in my life, I knew that I should not lie or do anything or sin or just be more cautious of what you do. And He helped me make good choices.
I got mixed in the wrong crowd. The crowd everyone wants to be in, and if you're trying to please somebody, you're gonna do things that isn't really smart. And I got into drugs, I got into alcohol really bad, and then I was very angry all the time, and I was always trying to look for something to fill me, through boys, through drugs, through alcohol. I was always trying to find something to make me happy, to complete me, and I never ever found that. If I found to make me happy, it was only a little bit. And then I got sent to Teen Challenge. First, I wasn't very pleased to be there, and then I saw all these girls so happy and all the time, not just a little bit, all the time, and they were so happy for no reason. I wanted that. I wanted what they had, and they always talked about God, so I knew it was God. I knew it was God's love coming off of them. And I felt it, and I wanted it. I wanted it so bad. So I finally just gave up, and I gave my life to Christ. After a week I was there.
Sometimes you get a little bit away from something and you don't realize it, and a little bit further and a little bit further, and it takes getting really far from it and all of a sudden turning around and going, oh my goodness, what am I doing? And we've had a lot of things happen in our family. The kids lost their father. And that's been very hard, and seeing how they're affected, and I want them to have something strong to hold on to. My sister is just this huge rock. She's had so many things happen in her life, and no matter what, she is constant and just relying and saying, it'll work out, it'll be fine. And I've seen that happen in her life, and I thought, I need to have that confidence in everything, even when things are falling apart. And it's just gotten stronger over the past 2 years. In December, I lost my job 2 days before Christmas. So I was going to either lay down on the floor and never get up again, or decide, these things can only make me stronger. And I just literally put my entire trust completely. I did not even stress about it. And it's just, to me, it just gets better every day.